Did everybody get a handout? Yeah, let me grab you one. All right, let me start it here. For those of you who are on time, you will be rewarded by not starting on time.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. All right, let me get my technology in order here and make sure we are live and ready to go. Okay. All right, so I think we're ready. Before we get started, I just want to introduce myself for those of you guys who don't know me. Good morning. My name is Dr. Dave Yachter. I've been practicing here in Plantation for, gosh, I guess about 21 years, maybe a little bit longer. I'm a chiropractor by trade, but I've always had a specialty and a focus in health and wellness, nutrition. I've historically done these workshops in my office month in and month out for literally the better part of 2 decades. I've authored a couple of books on it. I've always been active in my community. This is something that I enjoy doing. So I want to thank you guys for coming out. My mission and my purpose for us accomplishing what we're going to do today, our goal, is to make sure that you guys leave here with your cup really full with a lot of good strategies on how to improve your health. How many of you guys would like to have about 30 or 40, maybe 50% more energy? Would that be a good goal?
Yes.
Okay. If some of you guys may be here to lose weight, some of you guys may be here to just to improve your health. How many of you guys would like 2015 to be your healthiest year ever? All of us, right? So, the reality is that, we live in a day and age today where if we don't have a strategy to prevent sickness and disease, unfortunately, it's really what's given to us on a silver platter. We don't really have a healthcare system. We have a sickness or a disease care system. And the approach today for health challenges or managing that is really not correcting the cause. It's really just treating effects. And it's a good idea to have medical doctors and physicians who can test and diagnose different things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your only option is drugs and surgery. So a lot of the diseases that almost everybody literally who walks through my office today, like high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, cancer, research shows all of that is preventable. Much of it is reversible, like with type 2 diabetics, hypertensive patients. That's almost a given, like we can reverse that today. All these things can be done with proper lifestyle. We sit in the same pews on Wednesdays and we pray for people, for cancer and all the different things, and that's the most important and the first and foremost thing that we're supposed to do is pray. But on the other hand, I always say that your actions need to back up your prayers. You just don't pray to God and not tie up your camels, so to speak. So your actions have to support your prayers, and I think that's where a lot of this is missing sometimes in our camp as believers. We're definitely very focused on prayer, but then a lot of us maybe don't have the resources and the technology and the understanding and the strategies to back that up. So that's why I'm here today, to kind of fill in those voids. And again, I want to make sure that you leave here today with your cup very, very full, and then we'll answer some questions before we leave. This is something that I've developed over the last couple of years, which gives us a well-rounded approach to your health. As I said, I'm a chiropractor by trade, but I've always incorporated and encompassed all of these other aspects of health, which are vitally important. They're essentials. Proper spinal function, because your nerve system is what controls and coordinates every cell, organ, and tissue in your body. Heart, lungs, liver, spleen, your thyroid glands, your reproductive organs, your hormones, everything is controlled by your nerve system. So you got to make sure that that is checked every once in a while, and that has to be functioning properly. And then exercise is really important too. Oxygenation. Without oxygenation, without oxygen, you're dead. Oxygen is essential for health. Nutrition. Obviously, what goes in is what you get out. And so we want to make sure that we look at that today and not just take our recommendations from the food industry. What you'll learn today is that all the diet foods actually don't cause you to lose weight, they cause you to gain weight in the end, because they're neurotransmitter and hormone disruptors. They're very misleading. You got to understand the FDA, they call it the Food and Drug Administration, because they kind of work hand in hand. The food industry makes you sick, and then the drug industry drugs you for that for the rest of your life. It's a, I don't know if you want to call it a conspiracy, whatever you want, but we're made sick by our food and agriculture and the recommendations that we've been given since we've been in kindergarten. And so we're going to uncover a lot of that today. And that all comes through education. That's why I think this is really the most important out of all of them, because what you don't know sometimes can literally be the difference between life and death. And again, we put our trust and authority in those who claim to be authorities, but they're really not. It all has to do with image and marketing, and a lot of us are really misled because of that. And so we live in a day and age today where, you know, the number one chief complaint when people walk through my office, and I would say all of my colleagues, is energy. Everybody has energy leaks, and a lot of it comes from stress. And stress is a killer in and of itself. But there are a lot of different things that cause stress. So first and foremost, stress can be caused by mineral depletion, vitamin deficiencies, nutritional deficiencies. This is one thing that I think really goes overlooked. Our soil today, you know, that we get our, you know, how many of you guys go to the grocery store, you get fruits and vegetables, and you get the organic stuff, and it looks so good, and it's sitting there on your table, and you got to realize that by the time it gets shipped from California and it sits on a truck for a week, it's already lost like 80% of its nutritional value. And then on top of that, the soils that they're grown in, and all of this is harvested, they're supposed to have at least 70 different trace minerals in it, but modern agriculture only replaces 4. So we got this mineral deficiency that's occurring, which causes dehydration, which causes fatigue. And then on top of that, how many of you guys know you're supposed to be like gently saturating and drinking water, you know, like this all day long? You know, like a little bit, at least, you know, we know that we're supposed to be hydrating, right? So if you have a trace mineral deficiency and you're hydrating, which I've noticed like everybody now is catching on to the hydration thing, you actually wash more of those trace minerals out. So what a lot of people don't know is there's a difference between saturation, you know, like when you're gently sipping this all day long, there's a difference between saturation and hydration. Hydration is when you actually get the water into the cells. And what I'm finding now is when people come in and they're getting tested in our office, there's swelling, there's interstitial swelling. The water gets trapped in the tissues and never makes it into the cells. So we got these people with, they're literally drowning in their fluids. And they're drinking all this water, but there's very little hydration. Their hydration levels are very, very low. Your body water percentage, textbooks say, should be somewhere between 45 and 60%. Most people who come in our office, they're like at 30, 32%. They're like, Don, I'm drinking water all day long. I don't understand this. Huge difference. So trace minerals, I'll tell you one thing. Since I've been using this with myself and my patients, we see body hydration go up significantly. I'll tell you what, when body hydration goes up, when the percentage of water goes up, body fat percentage starts going down. So this Premier Pink Salt Pink PR Labs is something I carry in my office because it's not superheated. Like when you have table salt and even a lot of these Himalayan sea salts that are superheated, they heat it to like over 1,000 degrees just to dry it out so it has like shelf life. But when they do that, guess what it does to the trace minerals? Bye-bye. Yeah. So when you get something like this that's air dried or solar dried, naturally, it still has all the trace minerals. Pink salt happens to be a mixture of Mediterranean sea salt and Hawaiian sea salt. Good morning. And then the Hawaiian sea salt has a pink tinge to it from the volcanic ash. And the volcanic ash is super rich in trace minerals, about 92 different trace minerals. 80 of them are essential for fat burning. So I'll tell you what, I love this. You put it on all your vegetables, on all your foods after you cook it, and it'll really help with hydration. You won't have to drink necessarily as much. It's always a good idea to saturate, but now you know you're going to hydrate. Here's another thing that dehydrates: coffee. Okay, and then on top of that, you know, when you're abusing it, I don't say there's anything wrong with having, you know, like a cup a day. In fact, coffee has some benefits, but there's good and there's bad. The bad is that it's the most heavily sprayed crop, you know, with pesticides and herbicides. So as far as its toxic load, there's nothing more toxic on the planet than inorganic coffee. But if you have something that's organic and mountain grown, then it comes with a lot of minerals and amazing benefits like magnesium, chromium, vanadium, zinc, and it actually helps control blood sugar and is actually a good fat burner. So there are benefits, but you have to obviously choose wisely with that. The other thing that's great about coffee is it has this thing. It helps to release BDNF, which helps to make new healthy brain cells. So I don't think there's anything wrong with drinking coffee. In fact, like on an empty stomach in the morning, if you really want to stay in fat burning, when growth hormone and testosterone are the highest or in the morning, your body is burning the most fat in the morning. So when we have patients on a weight loss program in our office, we actually tell them to have tea or coffee in the morning, but just black, inorganic, don't put any sugar in it, and it actually is thermogenic. It actually supports the fat burning process. And so, when used properly, there are benefits, but in excess is really the issue that we face with most people in our community, because we're just trying to keep up. We're so burnt out, right? And so we just need to have more and more of the coffee, and then what happens is it winds up burning out our hypothalamus, the pancreas, and a lot of the different organs, which then begins to shut down your neurotransmitters, your happy hormones. So then that causes you to reach for more coffee, and then it becomes a vicious spiral. And when you start messing with these hormones, when you're constantly under stress, and anybody ever feel like that? You're like on a rat on a treadmill, like on that wheel, and it just never stops. And you could just sometimes, hi Mary, sometimes you'll just start to feel the back of your head pulsing. That's when your blood pressure's going up, and that's when you're really stressed and things start to become dangerous. But what's happening is that you're constantly activating that fight or flight mechanism in your body, which alters now your blood sugar levels. This is cortisol. That's something that your adrenal glands release. And your adrenal glands are there to help you monitor stress and help you balance to that. But when cortisol starts going up, what happens is insulin starts going up. When insulin starts going up, your body starts turning on fat storing and turning off fat burning. So that's a hormonal response triggered by stress. So obesity is actually caused by stress. Did you guys know that? Yeah, so you start gaining weight when you're constantly stressed out. And then, you're stressed out, you're tired. Now you're putting on weight and you're more tired. So what do you drink more of? More coffee, right? So all these other neurotransmitters and hormones become involved, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and all they continue to do is just deplete more minerals and vitamins and nutrients. And as you become more nutritionally depleted, your energy starts going down more and more. And before you know it, you spiral down through this whole circuit of artificial stimulation, sugar and caffeine. Your neurotransmitters are burnt out. And what's a popular neurotransmitter inhibitor that we know of?
Sugar.
Well, antidepressants in particular, right? So when there's a lot of prescriptions of Prozac, Wellbutrin, all these different medications, which many years ago, 30, 40 years ago, how many people did you know that were on antidepressants? Zero. So today, yes, we have much more stress, but I think what's happened is the pharmaceutical companies have capitalized on this market of stress and depression. And so wherever there's an epidemic or they see an opportunity, they're going to hang their hat on that and come out with a new prescription. So 6 out of the top 10 selling drugs today are for what? Depression. Yeah, because we don't know how to manage our stress, and the quick fix is this. The problem is once you're on this, very little chance you'll ever get off. And I'll tell you, it's going from bad to worse. In all the school shootings that you see, anytime one of these kids runs around campus with an automatic weapon or a plane goes down, you look at the profile on these people and what do you see? Antidepressants. It severely deranges the function of the normal brain. And it's really, really bad. It's very bad. I understand in some cases, that it may be appropriate to stop somebody from, suicide, but on the other hand, you look at the side effects and you see homicide in addition to the suicide, which they do, because you never know which switch it's going to flip when you start messing around with the chemistry that God created, which is so very delicate. So it's a concern. It's a significant concern. And that's why I'm going over this today. I want everybody to have more energy and have a better quality of life. But the bigger picture is, for lack of knowledge, people perish. And it's a serious problem. Our world is very, very dangerous today. Very dangerous because of the amount of medications that people take. And I'm not talking about, life-saving medications where people need that stuff. I'm talking about the overutilization and overprescription and doctors not taking the time to read their journals and taking the time to learn the strategies that would better manage patients' health from a more natural perspective. and correct the cause of the problem instead of just band-aiding it and being part of the problem. So there's a lot of things that you can do, and obviously just sitting through and learning more and being aware of some of the things that are contributing to the problem. So you wouldn't think that going to sleep different times every night and getting up at a different time every day is gonna mess up your internal clock, and it's definitely going to affect your level of energy and your hormones, and really your internal chemistry. So maintaining regular sleep habits is huge if you want to have more energy. Something as simple as that will make a huge difference in your energy levels on a day-to-day basis. We call this sleep hygiene. The way in which refreshing sleep, you'll feel that. You know that when you get up in the morning. I know that because even on a Saturday, so I usually try to get to sleep about 9:30, 9:45. I'll get up at 5:15. Always, get up at that time every morning, do my devotional, work out. So on a weekend, if I stay up an hour later, right, guess what time I'm up? Same time. And how do I feel that day with an hour less sleep? Not as energized. And that's my weekend. And that's like the time where I'd like it the most, So I've kind of learned that even on a Friday night, where it's tempting to just stay in bed and keep the TV on, it's probably not a good idea if you want to enjoy your day the next day. So you really have to be the master of your, of your quality of life in that sense. Go to bed and get up at the same time, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, no matter where you're at. Keep your routine consistent. And you have to account for this downtime. And Josh will tell you, I'll just, I'll sound the horn from across the house. All right, guys, shut the TV down. Let's go. We're getting ready for bed. Because I know it takes us at least 15 minutes to round up, the troops, wind everybody down, huddle them together, pray, get their teeth brushed, get them into bed, and they're still hopping around like a cat on catnip. Like you can't calm them down. So, and what does that do to my bedtime? It pushes it up. So I've learned now that if I don't blow the whistle at 8:45, I'm not going to be getting to sleep until 9:30. So it's the same thing. There's got to be a winding down, a gradual decrescendo. So that includes other things like making sure that you time your meals. Now this is really hard to do. Sometimes you don't get home from work real late. I dread that. So like on a night, some of you guys have been to a workshop in my office. And I won't get home till like 7:30 or 7:45, sometimes close to 8 o'clock. And I'm in bed an hour and a half later. That is not good. And I know the next day, I'm feeling it. My energy is not as good. And one of the smartest and most effective things to do to manage your energy is consistently make sure that you're eating, finish that meal at least 3 hours before you go to bed. And a lot of people don't know this, and inadvertently they don't know why their energy is so bad. They just get home so late. Even a lot of people, a lot of the staff that work for me, they'll get home late sometimes, and they'll slug down a huge meal, and then the next day come in with bags under their eyes, and I'm like, what'd you have for dinner? If I get home if I ever got home at like at 8:30 or 9 o'clock, and I know I'm going to sleep, like a half hour later or 15 minutes later, I'm not eating. I won't do that. Or maybe I'll have a shake or something, but I'm very, very conscious about the fact that when your body's sleeping, what does it need to be doing? Repairing, resting, regenerating. Is it possible to do that if you've got a meal that it has to digest? So that's called anti-energy. It's going to be taking away more energy than it's actually giving you. So be very, very careful about that, and also about the type of foods that you're eating also. Especially if you're going to slug down an 18-ounce ribeye, and then go to sleep an hour before. I mean, it's one thing to have a salad, a couple hours before, but different foods take different amounts of energy to digest. Here's another thing, the visual stimulation. So if you have a TV in your bedroom and you're sitting there, or maybe, have you guys ever noticed this? Like when you watch a movie, and then you're done with the movie, and you shut the TV off, even if it's not in your room. You sit there and you try to fall asleep, and what do you have flashing through your brain? Images of the movie. You're thinking about the movie. You're like your neurons are firing at a different level, and all of that type of stimulation really makes it hard for you to fall asleep, and that's going to cut your sleep short for that. So this is another good if you're one of those people where it's hard for you to manage that. If the temptation is there, if you have a TV in your room, take it out. If not, I mean, you know, we have a TV in our room, but I know what I do best with as far as to fall asleep. I've learned that if I sit there and I read, I'm out like a light, literally within like 2-3 minutes. So I have my Kindle on my phone, and I have like, it takes me maybe 3-4 months to read through a book. That's because I'm good for like 3 pages a night. But I've learned that that's how I fall asleep. It doesn't matter what's going on or how wide awake I am, that's my trick. So, you know, it's whatever works best for you, but you have to learn what works and make sure that it's consistent in there. I want to talk to you about this. If you've never read the book, I got so many gems from this.
Grain Brain.
Grain Brain, thank you. Yes, right on the tip of my tongue. Have you guys ever heard of Grain Brain? Great book by a neurologist, David Perlmutter. And this is one of the things that I got because I've noticed this on a lot of my patients. I've noticed this with one of my kids as well. That, you know, whenever, you know, he eats pizza or bread, it may not be like right after that meal, but if it's done consistently after a couple of meals and a couple of days, the energy, the behavior, the attitude, I mean, it's all downhill. It's just almost unmanageable. And what I found was reading this book is that there's actually research supporting this. The lining of the gut can be injured by what they call celiac disease. Now, celiac disease has its roots and its origin in wheat and white bread and all the whites and the flour and all those flour-enriched products. And what happens is it affects the way your body has an ability to, you know, effectively absorb the minerals and the vitamins. Your intestines is really it's really the powerhouse when it comes to energy production based on, you know, what the mineral and vitamin absorption is going to be, number one. And number two, your immune system. Most people don't know that 80% of your immune system is from the lining of your intestines. So if you damage that from foods that are going to be highly inflammatory, there's a number of different things, you know, that can occur, from malnutrition to immune system impairment, frequent colds, and things like that. But this is a whole other thing. What they're finding now is that it actually causes depression. So I wanted to read through this with you because what they found was that it alters serotonin. Serotonin is the happy hormone. So it's one of those neurotransmitters. You know, when you just feel like singing Zippity Doo Dah, or you get done running like a mile or 5 miles and you have those happy hormones. You know, so serotonin is one of those hormones that if you don't have that, they say, you know, you're going into depression. And what they found is that when you have problems with your gut, this is going to be affected. The vast majority of feel-good hormones and chemicals are produced around your intestines by what scientists now call your what? Your second brain. So historically, we thought that all the neurotransmitters were really, you know, influenced by the brain. Now they're saying that most of it is from your gut. The nerve cells in your gut are not only regulating muscles, immune cells, and hormones, but also manufacturing an estimated 80 to 90% of your body's serotonin. Holy smokes, that's huge. So most of your feelings of well-being, that neurology, is not so much up here like they thought it was. Where is it? Yeah. Yeah. So that kind of explains why we feel so crummy after we eat certain foods, and why we feel so good when we do. Garbage in, garbage out. In fact, your intestinal brain makes more serotonin than the brain that rests in your skull. So I'm going to go through with you all of the foods today that are highly inflammatory to the gut, which causes, you know, vitamin and mineral loss, inability to absorb those nutrients, but also causes your energy and your feeling of well-being to go down. So now you're going to be able to identify those trigger foods, and you're going to know exactly what that is. So just while we're on the topic of neurology, again, you guys know I'm a chiropractor by trade, and here's the neurological connection. The nerve system controls your gut, it controls your intestines, and it controls every cell, organ, and tissue in your body. How many of you guys have seen this chart before? It comes from Gray's Anatomy. It's in every medical textbook, every doctor's office, and it kind of shows you the neurological connection. Your brain, your spinal cord, and all of the nerves which reach out to the organs, and then the connection back to the brain. Now, I always like to say this, that a dead person has a nerve system also, right? So, you know, in embryology, you'll notice that when a sperm fertilizes an egg on the 18th day after conception, the first system that you see firmly established is the nervous system. You'll see that first, and then the cardiovascular system, and then the skeletal system, the digestive system, the cardiovascular, all those things. But first and foremost, always the nerve system. The neurology has preeminence over everything in the body. Why do you suspect that would be the case? Why would God create your body like that?
It controls everything.
It controls everything, right? And I have always told my patients that. But, I've been doing this lately where I just kind of stop and I apologize. And I'm like, you know what, I think I lied to you. Because a dead person has a nerve system also, right? So if a dead person has a nerve system, if a dead person has a brain, a spinal cord, and all these nerves, what does a dead person not have that you and I have?
Breath.
Breath, life, right? So life is the expression of intelligence through your nerve system. So your nervous system is really kind of like, your nervous system is like, it's like the hard drive. It requires software to run it. It requires intelligence to run it. And so when God breathes life into you as a living being, that's the same intelligence that created the living universe. And that's the same intelligence that made you, and that's the same intelligence that stays on board and runs your body. And it's an infinite wisdom, it's an infinite intelligence. And it knows how to take a sperm and an egg from conception and pop you out of your earthly mother's womb 9 months later with 2 eyes on the front of your face, your ears, everything. And it's literally a miracle. It didn't require any instructions, any help from a doctor. It just happens. It's innate. It's inborn. But that whole process is orchestrated through your nervous system. So it's not in and of itself, it's not the nerve system or the neurology, but it's actually the intelligence that runs that neurology. Does that make sense? Because everybody's nerve system, everybody's neurology is different. Like, Mary, your nerve system, your innate intelligence doesn't give a flying hoot about mine, right? It's personal, and it's for what your body needs. If your body is managing healing, maybe there's an immune system response, maybe there's an inflammatory response, maybe if it's fighting off cancer, whatever the case is, everybody's different. But it knows when that's happening, and it knows what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and what to do it with. And long before we do, or a test does, or a doctor does. So that wisdom is huge, and that wisdom inside of your body is something that we need to be aware of, that we kind of take it for granted. We give God all the praise and glory on Sunday, and then somehow we wind up at Target for a flu shot on Monday, thinking that we don't have what it takes to fight off the flu. Like our bodies can heal up if we cut our skin or break a bone, but it can't heal itself of the flu or fight off the flu, right? And not even talking about the propaganda that the media puts in there as far as saving lives or the risk of, we have to be smarter than, where we're led lately. So I realize that there's a lot of propaganda, and we're led to believe that many of these vaccines are mandatory. If you're in the military, yeah, because your body doesn't belong to you. But your children, yourself, you have something called, whatever your constitutional right is, or your state right in the state of Florida, you go down to HRS and you can sign off on that waiver. It's a religious exemption. And none of our kids have ever been vaccinated. And these are things that go into your body and attach to your genetic structure, viruses, your DNA, your RNA, and it stays in you. And it significantly increases your risk of infectious disease and cancer for years to come. So, without going off on a tangent, I want you guys to just remember this. This is really the principle of everything that I'm going to teach you. It's important to eat good and exercise and do all these things, but not from the perspective of dummying down the body and making it do what you want it to do. Really in the context of removing interference to that amazing intelligence that God created you with. And understanding that your body doesn't need much help, it just needs no interference. When we put interference into it, then we start breaking down, then there's sickness and disease, and then we wind up cleaning up a big mess and treating it with other toxic chemicals, which actually create more problems. The better approach is to stand back and say, okay, what can I do to work with the intelligence of the body instead of against it? Trying to manipulate it and control it, which really allopathic medicine does that. That is the philosophy of allopathic medicine. Again, my disclaimer is always, okay, there's emergency situations, but then there's health care, building health from the inside out. And that's really the concept and the mindset that we want to build on. So one of the interferences that I take care of people with in my office is structural or mechanical. Okay, and that's when the spine shifts out of alignment. It could be one or more individual vertebrae, it could be whole sections of the spine. But when it does, what happens is the bones that God created in your spine to protect the most important system in your body, when instead of protecting the spinal cord and the nerves and those delicate neurological structures, they start to impinge or impede or block that normal nerve supply. And when it blocks the nerve supply, it blocks that communication of intelligence in your body. And it creates something called dis-ease. Dis-ease. That's not the same thing as disease. I want you guys to realize that. Dis-ease means a lack of ease, a lack of communication and coordination from the brain to the body and the body back to the brain. When there's a lack or a breakdown in communication, let's say for example in the military, for those of you guys who are military men, what happens? Bad things, right? Chaos. Something's going to go awry. Somebody's going to get hurt, possibly even killed. And it's the same thing with this. You have to have a breakdown in communication in the body, and now the brain cannot coordinate the replication of new healthy cells. Now you have the replication of damaged cells. And a collection of damaged cells, does that function properly or abnormally? Abnormally. Sometimes we call it cancer, sometimes we call it a tumor. Sometimes we wind up with an infection. When the body weakens, it becomes a ripe host for disease to develop. So this is going back to what we call, like I said, the body doesn't need any help, it just needs no interference. This is interference. And by keeping your spine in normal position, by keeping proper posture and proper structural alignment, you're enhancing that intelligent communication in your body so it can do what it's supposed to do. Do you think that's a good preventative, proactive approach to maintaining your health? In addition to eating good and exercising. Yeah, so this is something that's very, very commonly overlooked. I'll give you the last thing and most important thing. Don't ever forget this. You can't feel a pinched nerve. Not in the beginning you can't. Now maybe some of you guys have. Jim, I know we had this conversation not long ago. And I'll have it sometimes myself. But when you get an x-ray, you look at my x-ray or Jim's x-rays, you're going to see stuff that's been there for decades. Okay, so in the beginning stages, it's like a cavity. When the spine goes out of alignment, it's like a wheel out of alignment on your car. You don't know it's there. You're not aware of it. But given enough time, what are you going to see happen to that tire? It's going to wear down because there's abnormal stress relative to the alignment. And so our spines are relative to gravity. And that force of gravity is pushing down on us when? Sometimes or all the time? All the time. And if you don't have the proper structure, it's failing against gravity instead of resisting gravity. What does that do to your energy? Yeah. So I'm giving you all the reasons why you're supposed to have your spine checked from womb to tomb. You're supposed to have regular checkups all throughout your life. And I know that every one of us here had dentists come to our elementary school and explain to you the importance of dental hygiene, right? And nobody had a chiropractor come to their class and explain to you about spinal hygiene, except Josh, right? Yeah, so spinal hygiene, right? So this is what we're talking about. Preventative maintenance, because if your teeth rot and fall out, you can get new teeth. But if your spine degenerates, your discs decay, herniate, degenerate, arthritic decay and degeneration, what can you do about that? Not a whole lot when there's surgery and disability involved. So prevention, huge, guys. This is one of the most commonly overlooked things. And when you have pressure on these nerves, it can shut down 50, 60% of the nerve supply, feeding on. Where do these nerves go to, by the way? All your organs. They'll go to your pancreas. If you've got reduced nerve supply going to your pancreas right here, you can have pancreatitis, you can have diabetes. If these nerves are shut down, going to your arms, your legs, yeah, you can have numbness and tingling, but those same nerves actually go to your thyroid. And if that's shutting your metabolism down, what does that do for your energy? Not to mention gaining weight. These are the same nerves in your upper back, which go to your heart and your lungs. That will affect your energy, but it could also cause breathing problems. One of the most common things that we see is in the upper part of the neck here. The spinal cord is the fattest in the upper part of the neck, and the diameter in which the bone actually surrounds it and protects it is the smallest. Not to mention it's only held together by ligaments. There's no disc above and below. So it's the least stable and the most important area. Neurologically, it's Houston control. It's your brainstem that literally overrides all neurology in your body. And that brainstem controls your blood pressure, your breathing, your immune system, your sleep, so many different functions, so much instability. problems up here, misalignments in that upper part of the neck will affect your blood pressure, it will cause headaches, nervousness, trouble sleeping, tiredness, dizziness, forgetfulness, depression, anxiety, sinus trouble, allergies. Know anybody who has any of that stuff? Very, very common. And what do most people do when they have those issues? They take what? Pills. But if the bone is out of alignment, do any of the pills fix the cause of the problem? No. So again, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That's why if you're having regular checkups, you run into these problems far less often, if ever at all. Not to mention keeping your immune system as strong as possible. You know, I don't have to tell you how many people get diagnosed with cancer in this country every single day, and heart disease. So if you're keeping your immune system strong and you're keeping your blood pressure regulated properly, what does that do to your risk of heart disease and cancer? Spinal alignment contributes significantly to that, in the absence of all other things. But again, eating good and exercising combined with all this is a powerful proactive approach to maintaining your health at its highest level. You know, it's funny because medical studies have documented this for more than a half a decade. They published this in the Journal of the American Medical Association. They said people with poor posture had a significant correlation with the shortest lifespans. Yep. So, and this is from a fibromyalgia conference. A team of medical doctors documented this. They said head and neck posture is a major factor in fatigue and immune function in patients suffering with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, and immune system dysfunction. So it's, it stands to reason that the better your posture is, the more energy you're going to have and the better quality of your life. So that's why I wanted to make sure that you have that. Now, if you have any of these symptoms, it's definitely a good idea, especially if you know that you haven't had your spine checked in a really long time. You know, depression, headaches, tiredness, fatigue, sinus trouble, tiredness, insomnia. These are telltale signs that your nerve system is probably malfunctioning. And one of the easiest and most non-invasive tools that are available is thermography. So when we roll this up a patient's spine, or along the surface of their spine, we'll see these colors, and that'll kind of pinpoint where the problems are. It measures muscle tone and also neurological tone. And it'll show us how effective or ineffective your body is in terms of its ability to adapt to stress in whatever your environment is. But here would be a normal pattern, and here's abnormal. And there's no x-rays there. This is just surface thermography. So that's one of the greatest ways. We do that at our office, and it's a really good objective tool to assess where somebody is with their spinal health. That's all I'll say about that. If you have any questions, let me know when we're done. Let's go into belly fat. How you guys doing? Are you? Am I losing you? You're okay? I'll tell you what. Let's take a quick stand up for me. I just want to make sure we keep the blood and the energy going. Turn to your neighbor on the right. And put your hands on their shoulder and squeeze. Go ahead, get the blood going there. Go ahead, get the blood going. Good. All right. Love your neighbor. Just like baseball. All right. Do a karate chop. Good job. Good job.
Oh, I'll give you 10 minutes.
All right. Turn around and love your other neighbor.
See, she gets the better.
Good. All right, we've got a love train going.
Did you,
Yeah.
are you recording this stuff?
Yes, yeah, Josh is. Yeah. All right, and do a karate chop. All right, I'm glad you guys are still awake.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm on slide 18 out of 48.
Yay.
That's, so it's starting to scare me. I'm talking too much. Sorry about that. Okay, so here's something else that is really starting to come to light through the research, which is driving a lot of degenerative disease, belly fat. In my office, one of the things that I like to use is a 5-pound model of adipose fat. It's really gnarly looking, it's nasty, people don't want to touch it, but it's about 5 pounds, it's about this big, and it's just pure fat. What I've learned is that fat like this, belly fat, or especially in all the areas that you don't want it, that is a hormonal system in and of itself. So adipose tissue or adipose fat actually is a hormone regulator or dysregulator, testosterone, estrogen, but in particular something called cytokines. Does anybody know what cytokines are? Cytokines drive inflammation, right? And what they found is that inflammation is actually what causes heart disease, diabetes, spreads cancer, causes cancer, it affects your cholesterol. Now actually they're showing its involvement with Alzheimer's disease. So what we're finding now is that the more adipose tissue that somebody has, the more belly fat that you have, the more your risk of those degenerative diseases goes up. And it's almost a given. Once your BMI goes over 30, that's pretty much the highest risk for heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. We know that. So we typically measure that when people come into our office all the time. And what percentage of people do you think who come in today are like over 30 BMI? Well over 50%. It's pretty much epidemic, which explains why most people are already on high blood pressure and diabetes medication when they come to my office. So it's very, very consistent. It's very, very accurate. I don't have to have a raise of hands here to see who wants to prevent a heart attack or a stroke or cancer or any sort of deadly disease. If you have one target right there and it knocks out all the others, that would be a pretty easy strategy right there. And that's what I want to focus on here. One of the things that we use in our office is emerging technology. Now this has not been out for a very long time, but I would say probably for the last 8-9 years, it's a biocommunication feedback system which uses resonant frequency technology. Everything in nature has a resonant frequency, a vibrational frequency, the molecules, the rate at which the molecules vibrate. And basically we're able to test people when they come in by getting what we call a biochemical fingerprint. So there's a scanner, like when they put their hands on this scanner, the computer is actually reading their body for over 2,800 different factors that have to do with fat burning, fat storage, fat metabolism. It reads where your hormones are, hormones, neurotransmitters, vitamins, minerals, organs, toxins. And so the first thing that the computer does is it actually gets, like I said, a biochemical fingerprint, because everybody's biochemistry is different. So it finds out where your perfect and exact fat burning zone is, like that green thing right there. And then after that, it finds out all the out of range fat biomarkers. So what's a fat biomarker? All those little red dots, each dot represents a fat biomarker. It could be a hormone, it could be a neurotransmitter, a toxin, it could be anything. But the computer identifies where that is and what's out of balance. And why, you may be overweight or, you may have a hormonal imbalance, whatever the case is. And then what it does, it's able to test you for the exact supplements that your body needs. So typically people come into my office and they'll walk over to the shelf and they'll take the vitamin D and the fish oil capsules and the vitamin C, and it'll go down the hatch, and if we all took that, half of us would urinate most of it out because your body doesn't need it. Well, with the resonant frequency testing, what happens is through the scan, your body is actually getting tested. The computer is delivering to your body the resonant frequency of the supplements. And if your body has a biologically preferred response to it, what happens is you start seeing these biomarkers actually disappear. And when they disappear and come into the fat burning zone, now we've established the proper supplementation for something that's going to keep you in fat burning all day long. It finds basically the formulas. It's going to take all these and create formulas based on resonant frequency technology and energetically embed those formulas of the supplements into a liquid carrier substance. So it's not HCG, it's not hormones, it's not any of that stuff. All it is a formulation of the resonant frequency of the supplements that your body tested positive to. So instead of actually physically taking the capsules, it's basically the resonant frequency. So you take these drops and you put them in water, right? You just sip the water from early morning to early afternoon. And it's got the resonant frequency of the supplements in it. So when your body comes in contact with that resonant frequency, guess what it does? It has the same cellular response as if it was taking the supplements, even though it's not. It's like if you were allergic to pollen and I had pollen in my hand, your cells would have a specific response. But I could take the resonant frequency of pollen, even without the physical substance, and create the same cellular response. That's resonant frequency technology. So with that, we're able to create the perfect and exact fat-burning supplementation formulas, and it's personalized and it's customized. And let me tell you guys, I have never, ever, in over 20 years of practice, had the predictable results like we're having. And then I get excited when I see people walk through the door every couple of weeks, and it's just like dramatic transformations. And I'm not kidding. I want you to watch this. Well, I guess it went off. Hang on 1 second.
Hi, my name is Todd Giller. 49 years old tomorrow. I've been on the program for 44 days, and I've lost 51 pounds, and I feel great. It's changed my life, and things are going good.
Thank you.
What did we say, 33?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jeanette Hansen, and I am on day 30 of the Nutrimost program. I've lost 33 pounds. I'm delighted with the program. Never hungry, that's the really big deal, and the most impressive thing is that my visceral fat's gone from an 11 to a 7. I'm very, very happy.
Yay, thank you.
And this was one of my first patients. This was incredible.
My name is William Hogan. I started the program on December 9th, and by January 19th, I had lost 43 pounds. I've won 1 point from being taken off of insulin, and I've dropped my blood pressure medication from 40 milligrams to 10 milligrams. And hopefully within the next 2 weeks, I'll be completely off of blood pressure medication.
That's amazing, thank you.
I wish I had it before and after. I mean, he was over 300 pounds when he came in, and he was pretty intimidating, especially with his gun and his badge and his big old beard. And didn't help to have the last name is Hulk Hogan. And he said, "This thing better work, or I'm coming back for you." And he said more than anything, he's like, "I want to get off these medications." He's like, "I'm on two diabetes medication, 1 blood pressure medication." He's like, "My daughter's getting married next month. And you know, it's $35,000 for the wedding, and now this program." He's like, "I don't care what it costs. I just want to have a good quality of life and enjoy my family." And you know, it was just amazing watching that. And so here's what happened with his blood pressure medication. He lost all the weight. Like he lost 40 pounds in 40 days, and then he was sitting in front of me, and he said, "You know, I don't understand why I feel so bad." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, I went to play golf the other day and I couldn't get past the 3rd hole." He's like, "I'm light on my feet, I'm weak, I'm dizzy." And what am I thinking? Blood pressure. I said, "Bill, are you still taking the same prescription as you were when you're 40 pounds heavier?" He's like, "Yeah." "Go back to your doctor. You should have done that a lot sooner. I told you to do that." They took him off 3/4 of his medication, and he was still dizzy. So what does that tell you? Should have been off. Yeah, so that was one of my first patients. Now I'm like I have these patients actually text me every day what their blood sugar and their blood pressure medication is, where they're at every single day, because literally like a type 2 diabetic will be off of their insulin within a matter of days. And same thing with the blood pressure. So you know, and again, a lot of people don't know this, but these degenerative diseases are completely reversible. You know, and you know, like with what Scott just went through, and I was watching that, and I was you don't know it, Scott, but I was clicking in, I was watching you on Facebook, and I was just so happy to see that, and so proud, because so few people know that option even exists, and they just live in fear. But you know, we're supposed to have faith, but if we have knowledge to go with that, and I mean, it's just, that's life changing right there. And I know God's going to use that in a huge way, not just in your life, but a lot of other lives as
You know,
well.
the shameful thing about it, Dave, is what the doctors were able to do to me out of the country. They'd be put in jail today here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just tons and tons of research out there that shows what they did to me was just super effective. And I went to a doctor here in Miami last week, and he took a look at my blood, and he goes, "Well, I need to run one more test, and we're going to wait on it." He goes, "This is the gold standard of all tests. And by the way, your insurance company won't pay for it. You have to pay for it, but if you do it, you pretty much have, you know assurance that it's good." But he goes, "Everything they did to you is working," and it runs really parallel to what you're talking about here. It really does.
Yeah. The problem is that a lot of the doctors, you know, they got to protect their license. You know, they want to incorporate some of these things into their practice, and it's just that they run the risk of losing their license, even though what they would do would be effective at saving lives a lot more effectively. But
well, you know, right after the surgery, I mean, everybody I talked to said, "Do the surgery. It's 100%, and it will help." Then you do your adjuvant stuff, but you know, they walk in with junk food.
Yeah.
And this is a hospital for crying out loud. And here they walk in the door and they put junk food in front of me. I'm like, I don't want that.
Well, knowledge is power for sure.
Yeah.
So this is what we use. Basically, this kind of tells you where you're at. Again, you can't see what's going on the inside, but the more information that you could get to assess your health. I always say the 3 most dangerous words that can come out of our mouths is "I feel fine," because you have no idea what's going on inside. By the time you feel a symptom or your body's in crisis, it's what? It's too late. Yeah. So you can't judge your health by how you feel. Testing is really important, especially on a regular basis. A simple body composition analysis will tell you exactly, what your BMI is, your total body fat percentage, how much fat mass you're carrying, your metabolic age. This is the biggest kick that people get. Like if you're 50 years old and your metabolic age is 80, what does that tell you?
You're overweight.
Well, yeah, you got a big problem. It doesn't matter how much you exercise or how little you eat. If your metabolism is working 30 years more than your chronological age, you're in trouble. And typically diets cause that problem. Every time you conserve calories and you starve yourself, you're teaching your body to store fat instead of burn it. So you can actually lose 20, 30 pounds, but that doesn't mean you're losing fat. You're usually losing muscle and water, and you're destroying your metabolism in the process. And so when people come in and get this thing tested, they're like, oh my gosh, I knew that was it. That's why I feel like the way I did. So I actually did this, believe it or not. You guys would probably laugh and think, like, why would you need to do it? Well, I had always eaten good and exercised, and I would say I got to the point where everything started getting a little chunky right here, and I said, you know what? If this thing will actually target abnormal fat, what's wrong with losing some fat right here? And I did that, and I lost like 18 pounds in 2.5 weeks. And the majority of it was actually fat. My waist went from a 36 down to a 33, and that was like literally in 2.5 weeks. And that's the only place that I lost it off of. I'm wearing clothes that I haven't worn in 20 years now. So if you have a system that actually targets abnormal fat instead of just a diet, then you have something that's healthy, that you not only feel great and you become energized, but it's also something that, again, is a good proactive strategy to prevent sickness and disease. If you're interested in having one of those tests done, you can book an appointment online. Just go to 954thin.com. I have some brochures here. If anybody's interested, that's how we do our scheduling for this. You can do it right online and book your appointment if you'd like to do that. It's like a 40-minute appointment. We do the testing, and then we sit down with you and kind of evaluate your goals and see if the program is a good fit for you if you are interested in that. Okay, so let's transition into some of the meat and potatoes of this, some of the nutrition part. Let's talk about toxins, because toxins have everything to do with weight loss. Your body actually uses fat to store toxins, if you were not aware of that. And so getting rid of toxins goes hand in hand with getting rid of fat. And I want to talk to you about some of the toxins here. So let's talk about the toxic top 10. When I talk about toxins, please realize that when we talk about toxicity, all of us in the room are toxic. It's not a matter of if you're toxic, it's a matter of how toxic are you. Your indoor air, right now, the government standards show that, especially the Environmental Protection Agency, says that your indoor air is 5 to 10 times more toxic than the outdoor air. So it's basically everything in our homes. Dishwashing detergent, oven cleaner, laundry detergent has things called benzene that causes leukemia. Your dishwashing detergent has chlorine and fluoride, petrochem, benzenes. So basically when that door opens from your dishwasher and you see that smoke go off, that's a toxic bomb going off in your house. And you're breathing that in. Your floor, furniture polishers, air fresheners, hard surface cleaners, antibacterial cleaners and soaps. Josh, remember we were yesterday, and were you with me when Leon was pumping that soap on us, the antibacterial soap? I said, don't do that.
It has triclosan in it,
Yeah.
which is a pesticide.
Pesticide destroys your liver, and it's cancer causing. The sickest I ever got was on a cruise after them, like the Gestapo, forcing you to do that before you walk through every corridor on the ship. And I was sick for a couple of months after that. So I would never touch that stuff with a 10-foot pole. Dry cleaning, carpet and upholstery cleaners, toilet bowl cleaners, highly toxic, guys. So we need to be very aware of these. There are different alternatives they use, like 7th generation, Melaleuca. I'm not a salesperson for one of those, but there's all types of alternatives that you get, Publix or Whole Foods. So I want you to be aware of that. It's really, really important. If you haven't done a detox program, There are different types of programs. I would strongly recommend it. And I'm not talking about a colon cleanse, which is a good idea, but there's a difference between pulling toxins out of your colon and pulling them out of your cells. It's two different things. So I'm sure Scott has a lot, he can help you with that if you have questions, or myself. I mean, we're happy to help you. I would do this at least quarterly. With the world that we live in today, at least quarterly. Do some sort of detox program. Or have some sort of supplementation that does some sort of low-level maintenance detox that boosts your body's own ability to detox itself. And has the vitamins and minerals necessary for that. So when we talk about energy, there's something really, really simple. If you guys understand this, then it'll help you for the rest of your life. What goes into your mouth doesn't necessarily mean that it goes into the cell. So I don't know if you guys can see this down here, and I apologize because it's so low, but this right here this is a cell, and this is the cell wall. Cell wall is a bilipid layer. It means that it's made up of 2 layers of fat, and it's permeable. Permeable means that good stuff can get in and the bad stuff has to get out. And what makes it through and into the cell is basically what's going to create the energy. It has to get to the mitochondria. Do you guys remember that from biology?
Yes.
Mitochondria is the powerhouse. That's where all of your energy comes from. So you got to get your vitamins, your minerals, and all of the good stuff has to go in here, and that's what creates the energy. Now, a couple different things though. Because this is a bilipid layer, it's a layer of fat. Fat is, it's very susceptible and very susceptible to irritability and inflammation. So there are certain things that will actually inflame and destroy the layer of the cell. Namely, sugars, flour, bad fats, hydrogenated fats. And I'll explain to you why. Like, for example, particularly hydrogenated and partially hydrogenated fats. Are they man-made? Are they God-made or man-made? They're man-made. So if God didn't make it, then he didn't put a receptor on the cell to allow it to get in. So what do those bad fats do, those trans fats? They park on the cell wall, and they create inflammation. Same thing with sugars, white flour. When it comes in and makes contact, and it's just pounding the cell wall from the diets that we're having all day long, it's driving inflammation at the layer of the cell, at that cellular wall. Now, when this cellular wall becomes inflamed, what happens to the functionability of it? It just shuts down. And so now you're blocking your body from absorbing the necessary nutrients for energy production, and not to mention all the other degenerative diseases that we talked about. Like clogging of the arteries and Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, cancer, all of those things are driven by inflammation, and what drives inflammation are the bad fats and the sugars, trans fats, margarine. I'll never forget driving down and visiting my grandmother in Florida when we lived in New York, and I remember finding 4 big tubs of margarine in her refrigerator. Why? Why were we told to have margarine?
It's better for us.
What's that?
It was better than butter for us.
Better than butter. And, so that was back in the 60s when, they falsified all the reports and said the low-fat diet, right? You have to have a low-fat diet to prevent heart disease. And it turns out that that's the very thing that causes heart disease.
White fat.
Yeah. So they said get all the fat out and go to margarine, the synthetic fat, which caused the inflammation, which now starts clogging the arteries and causing 4 times more heart disease now than we had 4 decades ago. So this is a significant problem. So it drives the inflammatory process, and we have to do everything that we can to nurture that cell wall, and that comes in the form of good nutrition. So let's identify some of these things besides, the bad fat, the margarine, all the hydrogenated fats. First and foremost, let's talk about the diet foods like Splenda. Aside from the fact that at 100 degrees, aspartame, Splenda, that turns to formaldehyde inside of your body, which is what they embalm dead people with. Does that sound very healthy? No? So why would we put artificial sweeteners in our body? To save calories? Really? Good Lord. That is just not a good idea. In fact, all diet foods have actually the opposite effect. So when you're having if you're having lean cuisine with hydrogenated fats and all of the artificial ingredients in there, Diet Coke, Splenda, aspartame, NutraSweet, we got Crystal Light with the artificial, like all those diet foods, they're hormone disruptors, they're neurotransmitter disruptors. They drive inflammation they don't help you lose fat, they make you fat and keep you fat. And that's the food industry for us, driving degenerative disease. And again, that keeps the drug companies in business. So all of these things, look how healthy they look. The chewy granola bars, right? The Fig Newtons, and our heart milk for the Girl Scout cookies.
And they're
All
filled with
just
coloring and
filled with
nasty garbage.
all the garbage that we're trying to avoid, which disrupts the surface of the cells and causes, the nutritional deficiencies and the inflammation that we're talking about. Listen, hot dogs, beer, those are kind of givens, but like it's simple little things that are probably in our pantry, like the Special K. It looks so healthy. The animal crackers, well, it's not a big deal. We'll just throw the kids a bone, so to speak. But really, what we're doing is we're in literally the single digits. They're like 6, 7, 8 years old. When kids are in traumatic accidents where it literally takes their lives and they dissect the arteries of these kids, when they do cadaver studies, they're finding the arteries of kids 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. They're already clogged. They already have heart disease because of all this stuff that we're feeding them, which seems so seemingly harmless, but it's not. The same thing that it does to us, it does to them. So I would beg you to just really be conscious of this, because unconsciously, technically, we're really poisoning ourselves. The temple of the Holy Spirit, that which we live. So that's
One thing on that Pop Sweet, the thing that they told me in all of my education was, is if you have a microwave, throw it out of your house.
one of the most damaging things.
Yep. Roxy only uses that microwave we have in the kitchen to sterilize the sponge to clean the kitchen. That's about all it's good for.
Yep.
Because what a microwave does to your food, you take living food like a raw vegetable and you put it in the microwave and cook it, and it destroys the enzymes in your food, which your body needs to extract out of there to stay alive.
Mhm.
So when you throw it in the microwave, it's dead.
Right. It's like not even eating at all. There's nothing out of it.
And then you stand there and get irradiated by it while
Yeah.
you're eating.
That's the bonus. So, so we have in your handout there all of the ingredients that you want to avoid. So we want to learn how to read labels. If you don't know how to read labels, it's this is an easy target for you to look for when you're scouring through the products in the grocery store. You look for high fructose corn syrup, trans fats, artificial flavors, MSG, artificial colors. All these, again, these are neurotransmitter disruptors, hormone disruptors, cancer-causing agents. You want to avoid these at all costs. Artificial sweeteners, preservatives. And again, you wouldn't necessarily know that they're dangerous for you. They hide behind these names that you can't pronounce. And that's pretty good indication. If you can't pronounce it, it probably doesn't belong in your body.
Dr. Yanker, I
Yeah.
just tell people the easiest way to avoid them is to only walk around the outer perimeter of the average grocery store.
Yeah.
And you hit, the produce section and the fresh fish and meat counter, and only get the wild caught
That's right.
fish and meat.
Yeah.
And don't even go down the inner aisles to be tempted to pick any of
That's
that
100%
stuff.
right. That's 100% right.
And see, then talking about meat too, like red meat is like definitely is completely off my diet. I used to love to eat a steak every week. It's off. It's off permanently. But fresh fish, and there's certain kinds of fish that you want to look at, because the deep water fish is good, but then also they're finding it, because you want to get the deep water fish where you don't get the mercury,
Right.
with high levels of mercury in them. Chicken is good, except you don't want to eat the skin of the chicken, and you got to be careful where you buy your chicken, because you're going to get hormones, and then you get grain-fed chicken, which has GMO.
Yeah, it's an ongoing
It's
education.
poisonous.
Yeah, there's a lot.
What do you buy the chicken?
Right. You got to be free range, organic, and you have to have an eye for that and look for that stuff specifically. So it's like drinking out of a fire hose. I get it. That's why I do these workshops every month. Whether it's here or at my office, you guys are always welcome to come by and continue to learn and grow. That's why I showed you that thing. That little owl I told you is the most important thing. Education. Because if you stop learning, you stop growing. When you stop growing, you start dying. So you got to keep learning on this stuff. This is a good foundation, but there is a lot. There is a lot to learn to continue. That's why I gave you these handouts. Look for that. Also look for the pesticides. In that handout, you'll see you got the Dirty Dozen. That means they're basically pesticide receptacles. So you want to buy them organic. Celery, peaches, strawberries, apples, blueberries, nectarines, bell peppers, spinach, cherries, kale, collard greens, potatoes, and grapes. And then you have your Clean 15, which you don't necessarily need to buy organic, although you can if you'd like to. But they're the lowest in pesticides. Onions, avocados, sweet corn, pineapple, mango, sweet peas, asparagus, kiwi, cabbage, eggplant, cantaloupe, watermelon, grapefruit, sweet potato, honeydew melon. So everybody will have that, and put it on your refrigerator or take it to the grocery store with you. So the high carb diet I put you on 20 years ago gave you diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease. Oops. How'd that happen? Well, in the 1950s, they did the largest heart study ever on record worldwide. It's called the Framingham Heart Study. And the outcome of that was that, there was a couple of different things that they found. First and foremost, that the people who had the highest cholesterol actually had the lowest risk of cancer. They found that the people with the highest saturated fat intake had the lowest cholesterol. And they established the fact that dietary fat is vitally important, and it's actually a primary source of fuel. And so somehow they took all those results, which were just pretty much black and white, and they skewed them. The American Medical Association got in cahoots with the American Dietary Association, and they just created all these crazy false guidelines to, I guess, to support the food industry, agriculture, and subsidize that. And what they did was they wound up giving us the low-fat, high-carb diet, which causes the assembling of triglycerides and sugars and actually causes inflammation. So that's what this refers to. So anytime you're having carbs, you're driving insulin. When you drive insulin, you're driving inflammation. And when you drive inflammation, what does that cause?
Cancer.
Everything. Yeah, cancer, heart disease, and everything. So can you guys remember, you all remember this, right? This is what we were taught in elementary school. And this is the #1 cause of our degenerative diseases that we're all medicated for today. All the carbs: bread, cereal, rice, pasta, fruit juice, cereal, Pop-Tarts, food bars, fruit rolls, chocolate milk, granola bars, cookies. We're driving insulin all day long. And when you're driving insulin, you're feeding cancer, #1. And again, you're clogging up your arteries. When you drive insulin, you're actually turning on a hormonal characteristic in your body, which creates fat. It actually assembles triglyceride. It assembles fat inside of your blood when elevated blood glucose levels are present. Now, there's even more recent research. What they're finding is a correlation in Alzheimer's disease with people who are diabetic, pre-diabetic, and I don't know if you guys, have you ever noticed that? Like after a meal, sometimes even if you don't get tired, mentally you may be a little more sluggish, like you're not as sharp, right? That's pre-Alzheimer's right there. So this comes from the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. It's a medical journal. They found this, that older people who load up their plates with carbs have nearly 4 times the risk of developing mild cognitive impairment. While we're on the risk of 4 times, also published in medical journals, they're finding now if you're on cholesterol medication, you're also quadrupling your risk of Alzheimer's disease. Because what it does is it destroys all of the life-giving cholesterol that feeds the neurons in your brain. And all of that is stripped out. So cholesterol, you need cholesterol. And again, that's one of those medications which is, if you do the research, you'll find it's really good for nothing. Because cholesterol does not cause heart disease, inflammation does. There is absolutely zero research supporting the fact that people who have high cholesterol have a higher risk of heart attack. And so there's zero research on that. Those whose diets were highest in fat, nuts, healthy oils were 42% less likely to get cognitive impairment. So these are the things that we want to start looking at. I tell you, it's very, very easy and very predictable to manage your weight, to reverse diabetes, blood pressure, things like that, when you just get rid of the grains. Just get rid of the grains. You don't need them. On the weight loss program in my office, when we get people losing 40 pounds in 40 days, myself, I lost 20 pounds in 10 days or 15 days or whatever it was. All it is proteins, fruits, and vegetables. You don't need grains to sustain life. You get all of your carbs from fruits and vegetables. So now I pretty much eat the same way. I just eat 4 times as much as I did when I was on the weight loss program. So that's all I eat. You don't need this stuff And this has become like a staple because it's cheap food, you know? And it's inexpensive. If you go, you guys know it's like organic's expensive, right? But really, is it? Because by the time you're on the medication or you're diabetic and you have to manage that and go to the doctors and your elevated insurance costs now, your life is worth $300,000 to your endocrinologist. So really, is buying organic food expensive or is managing the disease? You see? So it's so much more cost effective to prevent that by just eating good healthy stuff. Now, this is what I used to teach in my office, and I'm guilty. Because I used to tell people, let's not eat white bread, let's eat wheat bread. And what's better than wheat bread is pumpernickel and Ezekiel. It's all grain, guys. It's all grain. It all elevates insulin. And so what I stand here before you today and say is, don't even do this. You know, if you want to do it every once in a while, you know, once a week, once a month, that's fine. But like on a day-to-day basis, if you want to maintain level glucose that will not feed cancer cells, because everybody's got cancer in their body. It's a matter of whether or not
How your body deals with it.
how your body deals with it, how it fights it off, how it kills it. You don't, like, the more sugar you have, the more you're feeding cancer. I mean, it hijacks the glucose in your body.
Well, most people don't realize this, Dave, too. A PET scan, when you go for that, is basically they inject your body with radioactive sugar, and they're looking for that to light up on the machine. So if you're not feeding your body the sugar that cancer needs, that cancer gets messed up with it, and it can't, you decrease the probability of it surviving, or they call it the bioterrain.
Yeah. You're starving the cancer out of the body, basically.
So the 3 whites you've got on the left-hand side there are the worst.
These are cancer feeders.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
big time.
Yep. So you know, if you're gonna do the best of the worst, it would be a vegetable based, like spinach pasta or wheat pasta. But if you look at the you know, the label, it'll show you wheat flour or, you know, flour enriched anyway. So any of that is going to induce an insulin response. It may be less of an insulin response, but it's still going to be an insulin response. Yes.
Is all rice bad, or some good and some bad?
You can eat quinoa rice, they tell us they can eat quinoa rice,
Yeah.
and there's certain things, like on my diet, there were certain things that they would restrict you to. But one of the other things too, and the doctor basically was talking to me, and he said, the problem with most Americans is you eat a plate of food and you eat the right portion, but then you go overboard with it. And he said, you're taking a 300, what usually should be a 300 calorie meal, and you're making a 600 calorie meal.
Yeah.
And now you've done wrong. And he said you should also eat like 5 times a day, 3 hard meals and then 2 snacks.
Right. Exactly.
To keep your metabolism.
Yeah, that's spot on. And the other thing that's going to moderate, that will help to moderate your glucose levels, is having good healthy fats with your meals. That will help to slowly release insulin and moderate that as well. So, like with a salad, you want to dump olive oil on that, avocados, you know, snacking on almonds, things like that. I mean, all throughout the day. I mean, your diet really should be about 60% of good healthy fats. They're anti-inflammatory, they're anti-cancer, they help to regulate the insulin and the digestive process. So, as a rule, remember, I mean, if this is the typical American glucose cancer feeding level, we want to do well by keeping that stable from morning, the waking hours, all throughout the day. And that's the key, and that's going to all depend on your nutritional choices. And that's the whole point of what we're going through here. Eliminate starchy carbs. You know, if you want to dramatically change your energy, and then this may be radical, maybe a gradual shift for you, but think hard about when you're going to eat this stuff. If you're going to eat it earlier in the day versus later in the day, it's going to lay a lot more fat down. I mean, your body's going to turn that into fat if you're going to have that for your last meal and dinner. At least earlier in the day, you'll have a little bit of time to burn it off, energy-wise and weight-wise. But again, I don't do this really at all. Pasta, rice, potatoes, breads of any kind. Pizza was delivered to my house last night. I did not partake in it. I had a grilled chicken Caesar salad. Why? Because I value more my energy that I enjoy and that I know is necessary for my brain to function properly, so I could be here and share with you guys today more than the quick fix of how a good piece of pizza tastes. So that's just my values. I'm not judging anyone here, but that's how I make this easy for myself. Do I enjoy some of this every once in a while? It's very, very rare, but I will. I'm not telling you guys not to enjoy it. You can do it, but I am telling you how your body works. I'm giving you the user's manual to health and energy maintenance, really. This is how your body works and what it needs. High sugar foods, you want to be careful of also. There's a huge difference I mean, how do you feel after eating a banana versus when you eat berries? My breakfast of champions, literally day after day, is berries, and I have a protein shake and almond butter. Berries are really the best because they're lowest in sugar. Blueberries, blackberries, boysenberries, strawberries, Granny Smith apples, all the lowest in sugar, yes.
And I was gonna make a comment for anybody who has kids and say, well, how do we do this? Our kids come home after school and they want a snack. And I was gonna say, then you have the good healthy nut butters and a Granny Smith apple and cut the apple in slices. And you give them a couple of tablespoons of the nut butter with the apple and let them dip, or a good organic celery with that nut butter or something like that.
If you make a colorful tray like that, they get all into that.
And so there are definitely options if you have kids, because people will say, oh, we can't do this, we have kids.
Yeah.
You know, you can make it fun for the kids.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great addition. You know, and if it's there and they get into it, it becomes a good habit. And one thing I would say about the healthy nut butters, again, that can be deceiving as well. Not all nuts or nut butters are the same. You want to look on the profile and the ingredients. Yes, a lot of them have hydrogenated fats or partially hydrogenated fats, cane sugar.
Well, and then peanut butter.
What if you make it yourself?
What's that? Oh, if you make it yourself, it's
Yeah, like if you take the almond and because I kitchen made
raw almonds.
has the gadget that you can.
As long as it's not salted or
It has to
roasted
be
or anything
raw
like
nuts. You always have to use raw nuts.
that.
And you have to even be very careful.
And then you can just.
Yeah, as long as it's
butter yourself.
not roasted or salted. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you go back to the last slide, please?
Sorry?
Can you go back to the last
Yeah.
slide? The bananas, grapes, not good?
Well, they're good. They all have nutritional benefit, but it's the sugar content that we're talking about.
High sugar.
Yeah, high sugar.
So how much can you assume of the banana or
Yeah.
grapes or
You know what?
pineapple
I love
or
bananas.
mango?
I love bananas. This
So
morning
do I.
I had a half of a small banana with my strawberries and with my blueberries and almond butter.
Okay.
And typically, like maybe I'll do that once or twice a week, but on a daily basis, I really won't have many of those other high sugar fruits like grapes, pineapple, mangoes. Do I have it? Yes, but sparingly. What I have much more of are the berries and the Granny Smith apples and oranges. Grapefruits are good also, very low in
So the
sugar.
regular gallon apple are not good?
The what, gallon apple?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they are.
That's it's a type, it's a red.
Oh.
It's juicy when you
Yeah.
bite into it. It's like,
Yeah. You know, again, to me that would be a treat, and if you have it with the almond butter, it'll offset some of the negative immediate benefit or effects of it. And again, that's something I would have more sparingly. That's all. I thought you were.
And if people are having any difficulty getting rid of bananas in their diet, the one thing that I can tell them is if you have allergies of any kind, bananas have about the most mold content of any food or fruit that you eat. And so if you want to eliminate your allergies, eliminate the bananas.
Peanuts too. Yeah.
And you will be much healthier.
You just hit aflatoxins and peanuts.
Yeah, I cut out like a half a dozen slides because I knew we'd be here for like 2 hours if we did that, and that was like all in that stuff. But there's so much, you know. So anyway, but I thought you were coming back to this. Did anybody catch this? Fat storing veggies.
yeah.
Cruciferous.
What's up with broccoli?
Now watch this. Cruciferous veggies are cancer fighters, and they're very, very healthy, low chocolate with antioxidants. But what I found out through this, through the Nutrimost fat burning program is some of these actually have hormones that take you out of fat burning. There are, gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? They have a fat burn. They have a hormone that takes you out of fat burning.
Is it cortisol?
No, it's not that. But at any rate, those are things that I have more sparingly now because of what I've discovered with that. Anytime I have broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and stuff like that, my scale goes up like about a pound that day. And then it comes right back down just because my metabolism is like at 31 now, even though I'll be 46 this month. My metabolic age is 31. But so I don't have trouble really maintaining my weight. But it's very predictable though. Yeah, so
That's why I'm not losing weight. I eat broccoli practically every other day.
Well, it's not just broccoli, there's a lot of things in your diet, a lot of factors.
And the course, the pineapple and the banana.
Gosh, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Good Lord. All right, so, okay, it'll come to me. I'll get back with you on that. So again, so you look at all this and then you'll see where the sugar gets in. It's not just, you know, the sodas and the white stuff, but it's also laced in all the other products like the tomato ketchup and spaghetti sauce. It's really in everything. It's even the fruit juice, especially the fruit juice, very, very concentrated. Orange juice.
One of the things besides sugar too, any of the sodas and like some of the fruit juices are very, very acidic.
Yeah.
And so when you drink that soda, it's 2.5 acidic, which is basically you can pour it on the floor and it'll kill bacteria and stuff. But the other thing is you can pour that in your stomach. It hits the acid in your stomach, and then your body starts trying to diffuse this out in your body. And the way your body gets rid of that acidic, if you don't have enough other minerals in your body to deal with it, it goes to your bones and it takes calcium out of your bones and says, hey, I need to borrow a little bit of this to be alkaline again, so it can cause you.
That's
If your
what sugar
body's not
does.
alkaline, if your body's not alkalized, then cancer just has free reign to go crazy.
Cancer cannot survive in an alkaline environment. Yeah. So, so again, as I was referring to the Breakfast of Champions, I would strongly recommend that. This is what I do every day. You know, whether it's a smoothie or just, you know, mixing yourself a good low, you know, or no sugar protein shake, and then having your berries there, which gives you your fiber, it gives you your low sugar fruits, and then also your fats. Now, the good fats for your smoothies or for that morning can come in the form of coconut milk, almond milk. Yeah, coconut milk, almond milk. It can come in the form of almond butter or all of the above. And remember, you're going to get more energy from fats than from carbs. When I ran the Disney Marathon, I had a coach that really embraced and actually connected me with all the nutrition that I'm teaching right now. His name was Stu Middleman, and he was really, I mean, he's in the book of records for the 1,000-mile race. He ran 1,100 miles in 10 days or something like that, on foot from San Diego to New York. And you know, very, very knowledgeable man in terms of this nutrition, especially the alkaline. And he told me that the fats, the energy that you get from your fats are kind of like the coals that burn on like a barbecue or a fire. They're really, really long lasting. The energy you get from carbs are quick. They go out like the phosphates on a match. So when I ran my marathon, it was water-soaked almonds and salmon. I didn't carb up the night before or any of that. And you know, 5 hours I was running the next day, 26 miles, and the next day I was in my office. I had no inflammation in my body, and I had no time off, and I felt great. And that was my whole training. So,
Question.
yeah.
It says away from rice and peas.
Peas
It said to
yeah.
stay away from rice.
No, this is
Certain kinds of rice.
yeah.
Okay.
Like quinoa rice or brown rice or what is it, basmati rice?
Basmati rice, yeah. Now, these are very pure sources. There's no
Someone
pesticides,
said
there's no
something about
herbicides.
black rice. Have you ever heard of that?
Nope. Now, I was at the facility with Thorne. I went up there, I took a trip out there, and I mean, as far as quality and purity, I mean, they are world class. So, you know, everything that I do in terms of my nutrition goes through that because it's the most bioavailable. Your body can use it. Foods that help incinerate fat. I thought you guys might enjoy some of this. You see the coffee down there? Again, sparingly we say. Organic coffee has thermogenic benefits. Now, how many of you guys have ever done bulletproof coffee or heard of bulletproof coffee? Okay, that's
Adding butter to it?
adding the butter. You know, again, organic butter like the Kerrygold. You drop that in there, and again, it really is good for the BDNF that we said, talking about building synapses and new healthy brain cells.
I'm sorry, so you just take a little...
Yep, take the butter, dump it in the blender with the coffee, whip it up, or you can put coconut oil in your coffee. Do the same thing. Both of them are thermogenic, highly thermogenic, whether it be the butter or the coconut oil. So those are good, healthy, fat-burning fats. Eggs, almonds, avocados, olives, green tea. Actually, I have green tea extract in my water right now. Again, fat-burning effects, and also resveratrol, which is healthy for your arteries.
It has ECGC in it, which is good for, it prevents cancer from metastasizing or going elsewhere.
Yeah. These are all good tricks of the trade. Olive oil. Guys, I'm sorry.
What is the leaf then?
The-
Next to the eggs?
These are all different green leafy vegetables.
Oh.
You're just talking about tyrosine, yeah. But what I wanted to say was the extra virgin olive oil. Everybody should have a vat of that sitting on your table, and you should use generous portions whenever possible on all of your veggies. And we can't get enough of that stuff. You really, really need a lot of that in your diet.
But most of the grocery stores say that the olive oil is really extra virgin, but in reality it's not. Because growing up, I remember my grandmother used to make it from the olive, and it used to be like a dark green color.
Yeah,
Now it says extra virgin, but
yeah.
it's pale as could be.
I love when you go to when you go out to eat and you ask them to bring you extra virgin olive oil, and it's like white.
Exactly. It's
And I
like,
said, "Is this extra virgin olive?" No, it's a Crisco. Like they'll bring you vegetable oil in a restaurant. If you ask for extra virgin olive oil, it doesn't even
so
register.
where do you go to get the real virgin, the extra virgin olive oil?
You can
since
get
you
it in the
do
gro- you can get it in
We
the
find it
grocery
in
stores.
Nutrition Mart and
Yeah.
Whole Foods, but
Yeah.
even then, you gotta be careful what you buy. This
Yeah.
is the company that makes it. Barleans usually makes a real good oil, it's Barleans.
Yeah.
And they make flaxseed oil, which is good for you too.
Yeah. Hydration is really important also because when you're dehydrated, your body will not burn fat. When you're dehydrated, your body is, like Scott was saying, acidic. And when your body's acidic, it actually causes inflammation. When it causes inflammation, your body's going to hold on to fat as a protective mechanism for the bilipid layer of the cell. And so hydration equals fat burning, hydration equals alkalizing, hydration equals energizing. That's very, very simple. If we can, just concentrate on that, and then, like I said, when you bring in something like pink salt, those two together will really help, making sure that the water actually gets into the cells. If you don't have a water alkalizer, a good water purifier, and you're out getting bottled water, be aware that, bottled water that's alkaline, like Fiji and Evian, is different than like Dasani. Dasani and a lot of these other bottled waters, they're acidic. It's like a 5 pH, some of them less.
Reverse osmosis water from Detroit and New York is what it is. And RO water, I found out, we have an RO machine on our kitchen counter, and it's, according to the Japanese, it's dead water.
Yeah.
So they ionize the water in the hospital, and actually, they don't use chemicals in the hospital, they use strong acidic water, and it just kills everything that they want to spray with. And it's water.
So water's important, and then just making sure that you have a good, strong, healthy foundation. As opposed to the food pyramid, this was the other handout that we gave you. The food pyramid is something we want to transition away from, and we want to transition to the House of Health. And this is really what the standard American diet should be, which is the foundation being greens and good fats. And we're talking about that for lunch, dinner mainly. Breakfast being more fruit, protein, and fat oriented, and then the greens for lunch and dinner, and then the good fats. So you've got all your green sources there, you've got all your fat sources there, you got your nuts, seeds, and vegetables to choose from in the middle, and then your roof is going to be your protein sources, like fish. Good source, clean, source of fish, trout, cod, tuna, halibut, sardines, tofu, hummus. So you've got all these, but I would say that as a rule, the more that you can eat living food, the more it's going to translate to energy for you. When you start getting into meats, we're not going to tell you to stop eating your meat. Very few people are going to stop doing that. It's not necessary to be a vegetarian, but there are different levels of meats that are going to, have different effects on your body. I would agree from the standpoint of not having too much in the way of red meat. The studies that have shown the dramatic increase of estrogen, which has a high correlation with cancer, comes from diets that are high in red meat. That being said, if you choose red meat and you would like to have that as a part of your diet every now and then, just make sure it's grass-fed. There is a dramatic difference in the omega-3, 6, and 9 ratio of grass-fed meats versus grain-fed. Grain-fed has the highest level of omega-6, which drives inflammation. And so, when you have a grain-fed meat, that's going to have the highest inflammatory effect on your body, which is standard commercial meats that we are going to find in Publix at a barbecue, hot dogs, hamburgers, if you don't find something that typically says grass-fed. So you want grass-fed, if at all possible, much, much healthier if you are gonna do that. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Excuse me, Dr.
Yes.
A really good thing is buffalo.
Yeah, buffalo, I love buffalo.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
Buffalo burgers, they're awesome. They taste different, that's for sure.
What they'll tell you, Dave, too, is they'll tell you, if you take a look at your hands and cut your fingers and cut your wrist off, that's as big as your piece of meat should be. And
Yeah.
that's one serving of meat.
Yeah, that's
it.
plenty, that's like
4
8, 10 ounces.
4
That's all.
ounces.
You
Yeah.
do yogurt
Like 4
and.
ounces.
Well, yeah, then you gotta pat that sucker down.
Now you
It's
gotta
like-
cut the fat off, you gotta
Yeah.
cut the fat off, let it eat the fat, and, you know, sometimes you have to cut the steak and throw the rest of it in the trash.
Sure, yeah. What were you gonna say?
The yogurt, you can
Uh-huh.
have, you can have yogurt, or these are the things you cannot have.
Well, you know, with the yogurt, again, just look, and there's gonna be differences in the yogurts, the way they're cultured and the amount of sugar that's added into them. So that's where it gets back to reading the labels and knowing the product that you get.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about eggs, because typically we've been told to stay away from the eggs because of what? Cholesterol, right, okay, so, but here's really where the research tells the story for us. Scientists failed to connect dietary fat of animal origin, saturated fats like in eggs and meat, and dietary cholesterol. In other words, if you're eating eggs and red meat, it does, because they're high in cholesterol, it doesn't mean that that causes high cholesterol in your body. Okay, so there's no risk of serum cholesterol coming from dietary cholesterol. The belief that cholesterol we eat converts directly into blood cholesterol is unequivocally false. Researchers compared serum cholesterol levels to egg intake. They note over and over again that the levels of cholesterol in those who consume few or no eggs are virtually identical to those in people who consume bountiful numbers of eggs. They call this nature's perfect food for a number of reasons. The British Nutrition Foundation said that studies confirm the value of eggs. The yolk is the most nutritious part. How many of us have been eating egg whites for the longest time? Again, unbelievable. It's just a myth. So this debunks the myth. In fact, in a 2013 study, researchers at the University of Connecticut demonstrated that people on a low-carb diet eating whole eggs, even on a daily basis, improved insulin sensitivity and cardiovascular risk parameters. Amazing, isn't it? In addition to their healthy cholesterol, whole eggs contain all the essential amino acids we need to survive, vitamins and minerals, plus antioxidants known to protect our eyes, all for the low cost of 70 calories each. So I would encourage you to eat more of that if you like eggs. No harm in that. Remember, we want to replace the bad fats with good, healthy fats. Extra virgin olive oil, avocados, coconut, raw nuts, seeds, oils. We know what the bad ones are. Anything on a list, on a food list that you see that has vegetable oil, canola oil, corn oil, margarines, butters, cottonseed oil, soybean oil. Stay away from them because they're partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated completely. And that's not just found in the oils, but in a lot of the boxed foods as a preservative.
What about sesame seed oil?
Sesame seed oil?
Problem with the oil is it goes rancid, and what it means by going rancid, it turns bad, it gets bacteria in it. And so what these manufacturers have done is they gotta sell their products, so they put perfume in the oil, or they scent it, which is bad for you to keep it. So when you open it up, you don't go, golly, that stinks just
Extra virgin olive oil on low heat or coconut oil up to high heat. It'll take 350 degrees. Those are the two things that I would use, or butter. Butter, yep. That's how I make all my fish, with butter and garlic. 1990, Dr. Walter Willett of Harvard University found that by evaluating the best studies to date, there is no correlation that exists between saturated fat intake and the risk of what?
heart disease.
Subsequent diet studies conducted in 1995 and 7 found similar results. Of particular interest were findings from Dr. Castelli, who analyzed data from a long-term Framingham study. This was the follow-up study in 1992. They actually found the more saturated fat people ate, the lower their cholesterol was. Again, this is going back to the 1950s. It's just all swept under the rug. The principal fat in red meat, this is going to blow you guys away. Principal fat in red meat, eggs, and bacon is not saturated fat, but the very same monounsaturated fat as in olive oil. Holy smokes. Steak, 51% of the fat in the steak is what? Which is the same as what? Olive oil. Yeah. Saturated fat constitutes 45% of the total fat, but a third of it is stearic acid, which increases your HDL, your good cholesterol, while having no effect on your LDL. Okay, so, if you are going to have meat, like we said, if it's grass-fed, it's best. But just to make the point, just be aware that we want to have these good oils. whether it's meat, eggs, fish, if you're gonna have all this stuff, I wouldn't recommend having it every day. But if you are gonna have it, don't buy into, the old myths that they were saying that the saturated fat is what's gonna cause the heart disease. Because a lot of this has typically had all of the essential oils that we needed to prevent the heart disease. So when you're gonna have a steak, have the vegetables instead of the baked potato, right? And what is that gonna do? It's gonna maintain insulin levels, and it's gonna keep your body in fat burning.
Dr. Yanker,
Yeah.
if anybody is interested in finding and buying these items, but you're afraid you can't afford it, come and talk to me. I have an amazing knowledge of where high-quality, low-cost food is available here in Broward County. So if you live in this area and you're interested, I guarantee you I can get you paying less for the good stuff than you're paying for the bad stuff right now.
Excellent.
And one thing, did you mention table salt?
Yeah, earlier in the beginning.
Yeah,
Where do you get that?
What's
I
the
meant to
pink
ask you
salt?
the pink salt.
I order it from PR Labs. I've heard they have some of those good quality salts at Whole Foods, as long as it's not superheated. When they heat it to over 1,000 degrees, they destroy all the trace minerals in the salt. And even a lot of the seemingly healthy salts, like Himalayan sea salt, they use the same process to dry it out for shelf life. But you don't want the salt super dried. You want them air dried or solar dried. And when they retain all their trace minerals, then obviously
You get what
that
you need.
develops. Yeah.
But like they were telling us, and when I went through my stuff, they said, look, table salt is bad for you because it's only 30% sodium chloride, and the rest of it is silica or sand,
Yeah.
which goes through your arteries, and it basically scratches your
It's
arteries.
like a Brillo pad in there.
So your body goes, oh, whoa, wait a minute, I have an injury here, and then it throws the cholesterol and the fiber in there, and that's where you get your atherosclerosis or your...
Yeah. That's
Dr.
why I
Yanker,
tried.
since a lot of the people that are here now came in after you had already covered it, would it be possible for you to go back to the slide that showed the pink Himalayan salt so
Sure.
people know what they're, at the beginning, so people know what you're talking about?
Yeah, you can.
At least 5 or 6 people came in after you had covered that.
Yeah, that's right here. So that's pretty much what it looks like. So traditional farming, only replaces four trace minerals out of the 70 which we need. And so that's why, that's typically what we use. Is that the only product? No, there's other products out there, but we like Premier, PR Labs.
And you
It's
can
good
only
quality.
get it online.
Yeah, you could, I think if you go on Amazon, you could probably order it. Definitely.
And get it at your office too.
Yeah, we have it at our office.
Oh, you have it in your office?
Perfect. Yeah, yeah.
Even better.
I was on that last slide because I wanted to mention, this is the last slide, so, but I wanted to mention, next Thursday, we have our cancer prevention workshop. So again, a lot of this is, just the beginning, the foundation. I would encourage you guys to continue to make it a point to attend these events regularly, so, your knowledge base will always increase. And there's always new stuff coming out. I mean, Mary and Polly have been to dozens of workshops in our office. Even if it's the same title, I always do at least a dozen hours of research every month. And we're always, all the stuff from the medical journals, when you go to your doctors and they tell you this or give you the prescriptions for this and that, they don't know, they're not reading their journals. And that's what we're putting into these events so that you can, know how to make your decisions with that.
The problem with the doctors is that when you have a problem, they look at the problem. When you have cancer, it's the tumor. It's not a systematic body disease, which they don't even care about. They don't even want to discuss it, so.
Right, it's not holistic. Yeah.
And just one other quick thing is just that, everybody's out there talking about eating raw. But you really need to steam most of the vegetables that you're gonna eat and chew in your mouth to release the enzymes, but you don't want to overcook them. But if you really want to do things raw, truly raw, you really need to be juicing them or blenderizing them so that your body can get the most nutritional value out of them. Because if you just eat a raw carrot, you're only going to get about 9% of the value out of it. If you steam it, you're going to get about 33% of the value out of that carrot. If you juice that carrot, you're going to get about 99% of the bioavailable enzymes, and it makes it easier for your gastrointestinal system to absorb it. So if you have any issues with your body absorbing things, also if you're dealing with older people, who are not absorbing nutrients well, that helps because it makes it bioavailable right away. Anyway, now I'm shutting up.
No, that goes very well with everything that we
I'm
talked
sorry,
about.
may I
Yeah.
have your address, please?
Yeah, I have some cards
Oh,
here,
good.
so for anybody who needs, I just, in fairness to everyone, I know we went a little bit over, so I appreciate your patience in being here today.
Hey, it's
Want to thank you
education.
guys here.
That's
Again,
it.
our office is always a resource. Next Thursday, if you want to attend a workshop, it's a community service, you guys are all welcome to. I have some cards here if you'd like, on whatever you need. So any other questions, I'll be available. So thank you guys for coming today.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Yeah.
Guns included.